Welcome everyone to the 2023 Women's Roundtable. We have come up with this brilliant name for something that's very important, an open, honest discussion about the state of girls and women in chess, and to make chess a more inclusive place, because I think that's what we all want. It's a cool game, and we want to make sure that the game is accessible and just as welcoming to every single person. So I have an incredible list of guests, panelists here with me who will share their stories, their experiences, their insights on the current state of chess for girls and women, and how can we together as a chess community work on making it an even nicer and even better place for everybody. Let me introduce one by one our amazing guests of today. In the beautiful pink sweater, that's Ms. Jennifer Shahade, 2-time US chess champion, commentator and poker professional. She's also the director of the women's program at the US Chess Federation and the author of several books, including the book behind her, if I see that correctly, Chess Queens. We also have next to Jennifer Fiona Steil-Antoni, Women's International Master from Luxembourg, who learned to play chess from her dad at the age of 9, and a year later she was already on the national team. She is a renowned content creator and has worked at some of the top chess events as commentator and reporter. Let me also welcome Ayelén Martínez from the content creator space. She is a woman international master who competed on the Olympic team of Argentina and now is part of the core team of Chess.24 and Chess.com to grow the game of chess. Lula Roberts is, I think, one of the newest faces in the chess world, but a very known face already. Lula learned to play chess in December 2020 and soon quickly became one of the most popular chess female content creators, as well as a member of the Olympic team of Jersey for the 2022 Chess Olympiad. Alisa Melekhina is one of the, I think, most diverse professionals here, because she is not only a very strong chess player herself, a FIDE master and woman international master, but she is an incredible expert of the field of law as well, a corporate litigator based in New York and the author of the book Reality Check. And last but definitely not least, Judit Polgar needs absolutely no introduction. The strongest and greatest female chess player in history. At the age of 15 years and 4 months, she became a grandmaster and broke Bobby Fischer's record, which was the youngest grandmaster at the time. She is the only female player in history until now, unfortunately, hopefully this can change in the future, who broke into the top 10 of the absolute world ranking. She already is a legend and an icon for so many of us, and even after her retirement from competitive chess, she works relentlessly to promote the game of chess. I myself am Anna Rudolf. I will be here as a host, international master and content creator, but I mainly will be passing the microphone on from one lady to the other to have an earnest, open conversation about a wide range of topics. Feel free always to suggest other topics as well. I have a list of questions that I have thought of, but I want this to be a free-flowing discussion between friends, between colleagues, and to see what we can do in order to make the chess world a better place as well. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for all you have done so far for chess, and let's see what we can come up with in this roundtable discussion.
Thank you, Anna. And actually, someone should introduce you as well, because you have a lot of things. You're like international master, like super well-known streamer, like a Chessable author. I mean, there are endless things to say about you. So thank you also for hosting this.
Well, thanks to you ladies for being here. I'm just a humble fan here that will be moderating the conversation a little bit. Thank you though, Ayelén. I appreciate it. There's so many topics I'd like to discuss with you today. I thought that we could start with one of the most mainstream one. It's not the only topic, but one of the most mainstream ones that I was going to ask you about today. And that is this phenomenon called Queen's Gambit, with a female protagonist, Beth Harmon. We all have seen it. I believe our viewers have seen the Netflix series too. It was one of the factors of the chess boom that recently happened. And I would like to talk about a couple of factors related to the Queen's Gambit. Starting with Lula, if you don't mind, Lula, that I'm singling you out, because I believe most of us here learned to play chess in our childhood, while your story is slightly different. And I would like you to tell us more about your perspective from someone who was impressed with the Queen's Gambit and then picked up on chess. Can you tell us what was your image of chess as a game before the Queen's Gambit, and what happened after the Queen's Gambit that changed your life?
Of course. So for those who don't know, I started playing chess just after the Queen's Gambit came out, and I binge watched it twice before I even learned how to set up a chessboard. So that was a huge factor in me starting to play at all. And I think that's the same for a lot of adults who got into the game either during COVID or afterwards. Before that, I can't say that I had ever taken an interest in chess. I think that I don't know if it was cultural or pop culture, but where I'm from, it really wasn't marketed to girls in any way. Being from a very small island, and from Jersey, we don't have any kind of chess culture. We don't really have, kids' chess clubs and stuff like that. So the only way that I would have kind of gained access to chess would be through, TV and media, which, as we all know now, is chess is very underrepresented, especially women's chess. And I think that the Queen's Gambit kind of, for me, showed me, I mean, it seems silly now, but that women do have a space in chess, and that we belong in chess, and that it is a game for everybody. And I, going to university, was hanging out with a lot of people who did play chess, and they still couldn't convince me to play it. So I think for me, it was really important to see representation, and not having had any other kind of gateway to chess before that, I didn't know about all of these amazing female content creators and chess players and chess professionals. And so for me, I really took that series as kind of an open door. And then I learned a lot more about women in chess and obviously the game, and fell in love with that myself, and then started creating content. So it was very much a key factor in me picking up the game. And I know obviously there are flaws in it. A lot of the games in it, as Jen has pointed out previously, are from male grandmaster games rather than female grandmaster games, and there are obviously things that could be improved with representation in the future. But I think it really was key for me, and I still think it's a really important little piece of chess media now for getting people into the game.
Jen, since Lula mentioned you, would you mind to follow up on that thought? And I would also like to see the perspective of all the rest of you ladies who already knew how to play chess and then watched Queen's Gambit. What was that like?
It was a very exciting time when the Queen's Gambit came out. I feel like it forever changed chess in TV and movies, because the fact that they used real games, and that Anya Taylor-Joy, who was just magnificent, learned to play like a real chess player, which later I'd like to get Alyssa's perspective on, because apparently she credited like being able to look so convincing as a chess player to her background in dance and choreography, which I thought was like a fascinating tidbit. It really changed things for me. Like for so many years, I'd been trying to tell my friends that like chess was glamorous and fun, and that it was about like the beauty of the game, not just winning. And well, of course, when you saw the Queen's Gambit, I didn't have to convince anyone because they suddenly knew it. But to Lula's point, my one big quibble with the series was the fact that they used dozens of games from history to show Beth Harmon's progression as a player, and they didn't use one game from a female player, which you would think would be kind of like a slam dunk, right? Because of course we have the Judit Polgar here in the talk, and there could have been so many examples that they could have chosen from that. And I'm sure it wasn't intentional, but the fact that the show had a male writer, male director, male producers, male consultants, these are the types of things that are overlooked when you don't have females in front of and behind the scenes. So it's a good lesson for the future, no doubt.
Yeah, and going off of that, Jen, I think you were the one who made the point that not only did they draw only from male games, but the production team and the creative team and even the author of the original book were all men. And you can see that in the storyline because I feel like they glossed over a lot of the female experience, which is strange because this is supposed to be a coming of age story of a young female player coming into her own. And they didn't really portray a lot of the adversity. I think there was maybe one moment where she was questioned and then she won the tournament. And then after that, no one questioned her again. And I was also struck by the scene at the end where she beats one of the former world champion candidates. And he is so taken by the game that he kisses her hand in gratitude that she beat him. And I've never seen anything like that happen in chess. I'm curious as to your ladies' perspectives, and especially you, Judith. I know from your bio, the first time you beat a grandmaster, you recounted that he started knocking his head on the elevator in frustration. So I think we've had different experiences here. But just to Jen's point about the choreography and the dance ballet is a different passion of mine. And I did enjoy how in the series, even if you don't play chess, you could follow along with the movements just by the hand gestures she was making, just by the facial expressions, you know, her little Beth Harmon stare. So I can definitely see how that played a role.
Well, I can join in on this topic. And well, Alisa, yeah, you're right. It was really fiction to see a hand kiss over there. That's not exactly the case in the chess environment, I think. And I had to fight a lot myself that people acknowledge my achievements. But to tell you the truth about the series, I loved it when it came out. I watched it in 2 days. And I was really, really happy when seeing it so successful everywhere that basically I think there was nothing close. Maybe the Bobby Fischer Spassky 50 years ago, it was something similar, but we shouldn't forget that this had nothing to do with politics. And even this way, it ran huge and it was basically on top of the list in more than 60 countries, I think. So it was something very amazing. And it was kind of funny that I got a few phone calls also after that. Wow, Judith, it's about your life and your success. Congratulations. And then I had to tell them, well, actually, it had nothing really to do with me with the original book because it was written back when I was 8 years old. And but it was lovely to see how that people got mesmerized about it, and the whole world was like exploring chess, and you saw and understood that there are no chessboards in the show because the world ran out of chessboards. So that was something really amazing. And it was also fun to talk with Anya Taylor-Joy after the series when it was already a huge hit. And I was also amazed, as Jennifer said, that, I mean, she doesn't play chess. She played the games as a choreography. And that's quite amazing when she was playing a blitz game fast, this Simo blitz, when she's sitting on the floor. And I loved the chess games, the movements, the body language, everything. I think it's about 95%. We can say that it works very well. And to tell you the truth, I was kind of unhappy that I didn't have a single game there. I can say, well, I performed. I have quite a lot of great games. So, but I didn't realize that there was no one lady game in the production, but the chess was beautiful what they put in with those many games.
If there was going to be a game by you, which would you have picked if they had asked you?
One of my favorite is against Anand back in 1999 in Dos Hermanas, but I could come up with others also, which I think it could fit.
Joining into this conversation, Fiona and Ayelén, I'm sure that you also have seen, I'm sure you also watched Queen's Gambit, and I would like to know, from your perspective, how much of Beth Harmon's life were you identifying with? How much of it was in line with your experience in the chess world? And as the other ladies pointed out, how much of that felt a little bit like they are missing a few things, perhaps, few of the obstacles?
Yeah. Fiona, you go first if you want to.
Sure. Okay. Well, yeah, of course, I love the series like everyone else. And I think as
has been now discussed here already, they really, I think, missed the beat, by not including those games, and the whole Nona Grabfindashvili debacle as well, saying how she had never beaten a man. So there were a few things I think they got a bit wrong. I've been hearing rumors forever that there's going to be a part 2. I don't know if that is coming, but if so, hopefully they can fix some of those things. I really enjoyed the series. I did not anticipate, just how big an effect it would have on the chess world, bringing so many new players in, and especially I think so many new women players and young girls and people like Lula, who watched the series and who until that point had thought, oh, chess isn't for me. And I think as a chess player myself, of course, I think when you have so much experience of playing tournaments, you watch the series and there's a few moments where you understand, okay, it is dramatized for Netflix and all that. It's not quite, the chess world isn't quite like this in all the respects, but I think they did get a lot of things right. I think, of course, that the whole aspects about the drinking and the drugs was slightly exaggerated, but I think some of us know that there is a lot more partying going on behind the scenes that a lot of people realize, and there is a lot of rivalries, but there is also a lot of camaraderie, and you make a lot of friends through chess, or at least you can. So yeah, I think I thought all in all it was just fantastic news for the chess world. I still now, a few years on, I can't even remember, 3 years on after it came out, I still sometimes mention the series to people who haven't seen it and get into it now, and they say, oh, it's so amazing and I really want to learn and play chess now. So I think the effect at the time was incredible, but even some years on, I think we're still, reaping the fruits of the Queen's Gambit.
Yeah, okay. And from my side, actually, I have to say, well, I agree with everything what you just say here. But also, I was working in Chess24 and also organizing the Champion Chess Tour. And I've seen how a lot of partners that weren't involved before, they were actually now suddenly interested in chess. So I don't know, we got Puma and big brands actually over there. And I don't think that it's by any chance by luck, let's say. I think it was obviously that helped a lot. Obviously, we had I'm really proud of the Champion Chess Tour and everything within Chess.com and everything what we have. But I have to say that it was kind of changing this trending of thinking that chess was only for just a close group of people. And as Jennifer was saying, it's more a glamorous, the smart is a new sexy, and I don't know, just trying to attract more people outside. And also for companies and for any other brands, let's say, that help us a lot to chess in general, because we actually reach a lot of engagement from companies that probably before they wouldn't be interested at all. So I think overall was positive, but as you mentioned, actually there are a lot of little things, details that could help to use that powerful, let's say, reach that it has to improve women in chess. For example, this simple detail of having 1 games with Judit Polgar. And I guess it's really important what Alisa mentioned, that it's having people behind the scenes, and also Jennifer, I think you mentioned, because and actually that's why also I work a lot behind the scenes, because I feel even men are super interested on that supporting and doing everything, but it's not exactly the same. And I don't judge them, because also even myself, I'm learning nowadays about feminism and everything. So we all are progressing and doing stuff. But I feel it's important that in the behind the scenes, in the content creation and in everything, let's say, you need actually a representation as well, not only in front of the camera, because otherwise these little things happen. So yeah, but overall I will say that it was super positive, and I'm really happy to hear the stories like Lula, just I don't know, just growing suddenly in the chess world, and getting and falling in love with the game that we all know already. But so yeah, I'm really positive and happy about Queen's Gambit overall.
Lula, back to you if that's okay, because I was curious when you mentioned in your in how you describe your experience with the Queen's Gambit, that it was a bit silly, you said, at some point. So your image of how chess was portrayed in the Queen's Gambit, and what is it that you encountered yourself in when you started playing? I think you had also IRL competitive chess experience a few months later. And how did that compare to the series? So what was it like for you the first time you played a chess tournament?
Sure. So I 100% agree that in the Queen's Gambit, you don't really see kind of gendered obstacles that Beth faces, really. She doesn't seem to, it doesn't seem to be pointed out her gender so much, apart from in a couple of news articles maybe, and when they don't want her to play the Open because she's unrated. But playing chess in real life, there are definitely a couple of things that make you feel your gender, which is, you know, I love being a woman, but when you go to a chess tournament and maybe have a negative experience, you start to feel a little bit out of place, or as though maybe not everybody is so open to chess becoming more equal. And I did play my first tournament in Reykjavik last year in 2022, and I really loved it. I loved playing over the board chess. I met some amazing people. I connected with other streamers who I'd met online. Unfortunately, I did have a couple of negative experiences with some male chess players, which I tweeted about, and I also talked to the organizers about, and the organizers were amazing. But it did kind of shock me, because I had been streaming online, and obviously if you're in any kind of social media online space, you're going to find trolls, you're going to interact with people who are sexist or who are just, saying things to get a reaction. But kind of interacting with people in real life and feeling disrespected is a whole different thing altogether. And it's not something I necessarily expected, because when I went into chess, I had no real idea of what it was like. I knew there was a gender discrepancy for sure. I knew that it was massively male dominated, but I didn't know that there were so many issues. And speaking with women who have been playing chess since they were children was also very enlightening, because one thing I say a lot of the time is I feel really fortunate in a lot of ways that I entered chess as an adult, and now as an adult who has a platform within chess, because I feel empowered. I can talk about these things, and I can stand up for myself, and I can help to stand up for other women who have these experiences. But I think if I had entered chess as a young girl or a teenager, these experiences would have been much scarier and more off-putting. And I do know of a lot of girls who have had experiences like that. So I think there is definitely a really long way to go, and I think that is not represented in the Queen's Gambit, even though obviously it's set, mid-century. So in terms of feminism and women's rights, it should be further back, but these issues aren't really addressed. And maybe that also has something to do with the fact that there aren't so many women behind the scenes working on the show. But I think that playing over the board is one of my greatest kind of loves in chess. And yeah, so I'm not going to stop doing it. And I still, I just got back from a tournament a couple of weeks ago. So it's not going to stop me, but I definitely have had a couple of experiences at multiple tournaments where I've felt, like somebody has maybe said something or done something that was a bit inappropriate.
That's very unfortunate to hear, Lula. And what's also unfortunate is that you are not the only one, and there have been many cases that recently come up. Mm-hmm. We possibly will try to talk about this as sensitive as a topic it is. I think, Judith, you have a follow-up to
yes.
this thought, if you'd like to pick it up.
Lula has pointed out one of the interesting moments of the Queen's Gambit, because this is what I realized also exactly. I see it in front of my eyes. That scene when she comes to her first tournament, there are these two boys sitting there looking at her, and they say, no, without rating, you cannot play. And in reality, it's much worse, right? This was a reasonable reaction by the guys that, well, your level is not strong enough, right? And I think this should be the criteria. If you're not in that league by rating, then they can reject, or they can tell you that go to another group. But they cannot do it if they just point out that, oh, you're a pretty girl, you don't belong here, right? So I think this is something very important. And I also felt it that in the series, it was a much better case than in reality in the chess world, how the guys, boys treat girls and women who are just coming into the tournament for the first time, or even much later, I must say.
I'm just going to give an open shout out if anyone would like to add to this topic. I know this is a sensitive one, so you don't have to, and we can edit out this part that I'm even suggesting. I wasn't sure, Jen, if you are comfortable mentioning.
Sure.
I'll push the microphone your way in that case.
Well, yeah, I would say in recent weeks I've come forward with some really disturbing allegations about, you know, some bad experiences I had in the chess world. And as a result of this, I've been hearing from girls and women from all over the world about, you know, really terrible things that they've experienced in chess, abuse, assault. And it's really like a gut punch, because I knew, of course, I've known that this has existed. You know, it's happened to me. I've seen it. I've heard about it. But in recent weeks, I'm hearing so much more, and it's devastating. And I think it just goes to the point when people ask why girls drop out of chess. We have a very obvious answer, that a lot of them drop out because they don't have the support structure of friends, family, school that will support them not only as players, but as human beings. And now I always knew that, but now I know it much more. And so as a community, I think we have to figure out how to make the space safer for girls and women, and for kids as well. Sadly, I have crossed paths with this horrific story of abuse in chess from the other side, as well as a classmate of some boys that also experienced abuse. So it's not just girls, it's also boys. And I think that there's many things that we can do as a community. I know that different organizations are implementing like codes of conduct, safe play policies. It goes back to tolerance of negative comments, of sexualizing people who are underage. All of this just needs to be really nipped in the bud. And so I'm glad that we're having the conversation, even though I'm also really heartbroken by the stories that I'm hearing about.
You know, I have to say, of course, like everyone, your tweet, Jen, took me somewhat by surprise, because a person was named, I think, a person that I don't know very well, but that I do know personally. And it's everything that followed, I think, especially the Wall Street Journal is their article is one of the most disturbing pieces I read in recent times. And it wasn't just me. I was in Berlin last week when the piece was published, and Jovanka Hauska was there, and she told me she couldn't sleep that night after reading the piece, because everything that was revealed. And I think while it is awful to read about it, I am glad that I feel finally something is being done, because if I go back on my own personal experience, I think I've been overall incredibly fortunate that nothing really bad anyway ever happened to me. But just because it didn't happen to me, I think for a long time I was maybe a bit, I don't know if I should say naive, but I kind of said, well, my experience, you know, was positive, and I loved growing up in the chess world. And I think one of the things growing up here in Luxembourg, there weren't many girl players at all, so I was surrounded almost exclusively by boys, which I think led to the fact that I wasn't hearing, you know, that many stories. But I think that now even though it's hard to read and it's hard, I'm so glad that the things are being addressed at least, and I think it's so important that people are being held accountable. And one of the things which to me was a relief, you know, when I went through the responses to your tweet, I feel that one of the things where we are taking one step in the right direction is I see more and more men you know, standing up and speaking out and saying, you know, even if they are not guilty of anything, they understand they also need to be a part of that solution. And I think it's so important, you know, even in my case, even if nothing happened to me, that if we see something that we all speak out, and that counts for women, for men. And yeah, as you say, I really hope that going forward, chess can be made a safer space for everyone, for young girls, for adult women, but also for young kids overall. And I just would like to, you know, thank you one more time for speaking out, because I think it really, I imagine it was a very, you know, something very personal and painful to share, but I really think it got the ball rolling, and I'm hopeful that something good will come out of it.
Yeah, let me echo Fiona's sentiment there. Thank you, Jen, so much for speaking out. And we've been friends for a while, and I didn't know that happened to you, so I'm very sorry that you had to keep it in all these years. And I can just imagine the pain of having to go through the proper channels and it being ignored. And I totally understand why you had to make the public statement. And I'm so glad that you did, because as Fiona said, I think we're seeing change already. And I think this has been a problem in the chess world for a while, really in any male-dominated setting, but especially in chess. I haven't personally been subject to any of the sexual abuses, but just being around the chess world, there is a lot of locker room talk, a lot of inappropriate comments made about women. And that's still inappropriate and needs to be held accountable. I do recall an instance, so I've had issues with, for example, stalkers, you know, kind of following me to chess tournaments, sending me unwanted love letters, gifts to my hotel rooms. I had to change hotel rooms once during a championship. And, you know, different people take those experiences in different ways. But I remember, you know, when I was telling some people, they were saying, oh, he's harmless, or, you know, you should enjoy the attention. Or some people are saying, well, how are you conducting yourself? And are you actually inviting this type of conduct? And that has unfortunately been the rhetoric for a while. So I think we're finally getting to the point where we're shifting the tides here for accountability. And, you know, and unfortunately, those incidents over time did add up to me maybe taking more of a step back from chess than I would have. But hopefully we're entering a new era.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Alisa, for sharing that and for your kind words. I mean, especially your support of the statement as a friend and also as a lawyer who specializes in defamation. Your support means so much, because you know this is something that really had to kind of a discussion that was necessary in the chess world, I believe. And I'm really heartbroken to hear about your stalking stories, because unfortunately what I hear a lot of the time when I tell people about these situations, and I've never been seriously stalked, certainly not in person, is they say stuff like, well, why don't you go to the police? I mean, of course, it's very, very difficult for the police to effectively handle stalking, and that's been well documented. In some cases, it actually ends even worse once the police get involved. I mean, I don't even need to go into that discussion because it's a completely different topic, but that is often actually detrimental, not helpful. And especially as we see chess streamers become so popular, of course, no matter what the gender, stalking is a concern. But I think for women, they get a disproportionate amount of that. So it's very sad, especially because it's so difficult to say what to do about it, because unlike a lot of other offenses, like stalkers actually crave attention. So when we talk about them more and we point them out, sometimes that's actually what they want. So I'm curious to hear actually what Anna's thoughts are on this as a kind of a very popular streamer yourself, whether you have ideas on how we could approach that topic better in the future.
First of all, I wanted to thank you too, Jen, for your tweet, because I only read it a few days ago. I have spent the last few weeks or months not being much on social media, and then it came up on my highlights weeks after your tweet, and I was like, oh my god, this is from February and I'm reading it here mid-March, and it shocked me because I also know the person and I know you, and I didn't know what you had gone through and how many other girls or women had to go through that just in this one particular case. And that is one case. There, unfortunately, there's a lot of more people that may have done some harm, from smaller to not so small abuse as well, which is always very sad to hear. But I think, as the other ladies pointed out, it's so important that the conversation has been opened. Speaking up is really difficult. I myself had some cases in my own experience that I was not brave enough to talk about. In fact, I was ashamed to talk about. I haven't told my family. I haven't told my friends. I haven't told anyone. And now that you ask me, I'm like, maybe it's time that I also talk. But I completely understand the girls and teenagers that feel like this is something that really hurts them. It's really harmful, and at the same time, they don't feel that they have somewhere or someone to go to, that they don't know what to do with the situation. They try to hide from it, and in fact, they are being blamed for it because, oh, you are the one that is putting on a dress. Why don't you wear like long sleeves and pants and no makeup and just try to look less attractive? You know, that's the solution, right? Maybe we could play with a beanbag on our heads, but. To go back to the original thought, I myself was and am in a place where I didn't feel that I know what to do with this situation. I feel really uncomfortable. In my case, it happened with one of my teammates, much older than me, that tried to kiss me. And it was very inappropriate. I pushed them away, but I just didn't see that coming, and I didn't understand why this much older man is trying to kiss. I think I was already 18 probably, so perhaps not a child, but it was still very inappropriate. And just because you are kind to people, it doesn't mean that you have any kind of romantic affection toward them, which a lot of times is being misinterpreted. I feel like if a girl or woman is nice, it's almost as if it's a sign of you want something from them. And one of my trainers, one of my coaches also tried to, he grabbed me in an inappropriate place at the back of my body and tried to kiss me with that motion, which knowing that I was just attending a chess lesson and saying goodbye was probably not the nicest goodbye gesture. And I also know his family and his children, and this was just very inappropriate. And until now, I didn't say it because I didn't know what to do with it. So I was just going to be a host here. I didn't really prepare myself to be talking about these topics, nor I know what is the solution, but certainly speaking up is a first step. So thank you for opening the conversation and making me also gather some courage to let it out.
Oh, gosh. Wow. Yeah. I mean, thank you so much for sharing, Anna. I know I can speak on behalf of everyone. It's just so awful to hear about those things happening to you because you're such a kind person. And we're so lucky that you stayed with the game, because there's so many people like you who would have left because of those experiences. And that's valid, by the way. Very valid for people to leave if they're fearful of their bodily autonomy being like violated. Like, of course, that's valid. But then there's also people who love the game so much and, you know, have support structures to get them through and stay with it. And the chess world so needs people like you. And it's just so heartbreaking to hear this. I'm just really sorry. And thank you for sharing.
I just want to say Anna has been a very close friend of mine for years. I did not know, and I'm, of course, really sorry to hear it. I actually have another Anna story which doesn't directly relate to this, but I think it was one of the first time when I was personally really shocked by what I was seeing when Anna, I can't remember the year, but she had such a great tournament, in Vendôme tournament, which I also attended, and she beat the top seed of the tournament, Christian Bauer, and she was playing for the first place in the last round, and she was up on the stage, and I was there, and I was, rooting for her, and before the game, her opponents basically accused her of wrongdoing and asked for her to be searched, and at the time I was shocked because I think the arbiters just handled it so badly, because they sort of went through her belongings on the stage in front of the whole playing hall, and I remember at the time it was just, for me, traumatizing to witness, and I can't even imagine, what it was like for Anna. And so I've seen, like, this has nothing to do with sexual harassment, but I think it's bordering on psychological harassment, and harassment can take a lot of different forms. And I'd actually be curious to hear Alisa's thoughts as a lawyer, because a lot of these stories, we hear them and we witness them, and sometimes I wonder, what should we actually do if we want to speak up, if we want to do something? Because I feel one of the problems in the chess world is it's not clear where we can turn to, because, as you said, sometimes people say, why don't you go to the police? But that's not always as easily, it's more easily said than done. And sometimes I wonder, yes, I have maybe a few personal experience. I have especially a lot of things that I witnessed or that I know of, but what do I do with that knowledge? Like, where do we actually turn to? And I think that is one of the big problems we are facing, and something that I hope we'll get some answers to in the very near future.
Yeah, Fiona, that's an excellent point. And it's a problem not just with the chess world, but with any type of globalized activities, that there are just so many different governing bodies and so many different regimes. I mean, you have FIDE on the one hand, you have the US Chess Federation. But then when you cross the line into any type of abuse, then you have to get law enforcement involved, and that can vary by jurisdiction as well. And as Jen mentioned, law enforcement isn't well equipped to handle instances of potential stalking or domestic abuse until it's too late. And that's a problem with at least the American criminal justice system as a whole. It's not just a problem in chess. But one thing that we definitely need is a centralized dispute resolution mechanism to raise these types of issues, definitely in the cases of sexual abuse, but also in other instances as well. For example, handling cheating scandals, or just really any type of issue. There isn't one body that's in charge, and we need to really come together as a community and decide how to best address the situation and how to get law enforcement involved. And anytime there's a major competition involved at the world championship or national championship level, I think there does need to be a discussion about how do we escalate any types of issues that might involve law enforcement, and make sure all the players know. And this goes back to policies and procedures. This is actually one of the reasons why I did go to law school, not necessarily this issue, but when I was playing, there just weren't really any types of consistent regulations or procedures or contracts or agreements in place. And I actually went to law school to try to figure out what my rights were to copyrights, for example, over chess games or over images that were taken, or right of publicity over my persona. And in law school, I ended up studying more in the media and entertainment space for this reason. I never expected chess to go in this direction that we're talking now, unfortunately, with the psychological, physical, emotional trauma. But it's good that we're having this conversation, and it's a good first step.
I want to say thank you, Anna, actually, for sharing, and thank you, Jennifer, as well, for speaking there. Because also what I noticed, and it's something that we have to change a lot, that since obviously majority of players are male, like they are in federations and powerful clubs and stuff like, and they are powerful names. So it's really hard to go against them because they have friends and like that they can actually move you from here or like, so then also maybe that's something that I didn't like of the Queen's Gambit. Something that, as Judy saying and Lula as well, that they didn't portray like this experience for women, but also that they actually are asking, let's say, that you should focus in chess, you should focus on actually like in just be stronger and everything and just don't pay attention to what they do. But we shouldn't be doing like that. Like we shouldn't be like saying, okay, I have to be strong and just focus on that. And then like I will be in silent because maybe the federation is going to be against me. Maybe someone is going to be against, I don't know, like, like it's paying attention to that. And it's like, we shouldn't be like fighting alone. Like the federation, for example, in these cases, actually, they should be protecting us as well. When someone is speaking, they should be saying something. And or entities, I don't know, like I don't feel like it's really hard if we have to fight alone, because then like what we do, it's like mainly what Anna did, like that is the normal reaction, and probably like 90% of the women in chess did, that is like just trying to, okay, like I'm not going to share this, I prefer like forget about this, and then not be like sharing like this really bad experience because it's like a male game and with everything like controlled and ruled by them. So yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to say thank you for that, but also share that like we need help from the other gender as well. We cannot be alone. Let's say we need male. Let's say like any other gender. Let's say helping us, because it's not so easy to have all the pressure. Like we are not Beth Harmon to say, okay, this happened to me and I continue winning and I'm going to be the world champion. Even for Judith has like a really strong presence there with her family and like a really like environment. But like it shouldn't be like that. We shouldn't be like in a bubble to succeed. Because the only way right now is like, okay, you have to be in a bubble that like that you have your parents protecting you, you have friends around you, and then like just trying to be isolated of everyone else. So then like the players are not attacking you or doing anything. And like, why it's supposed to be like that, the normal thing? Like it has to be a major change, and like we need the help of the federation, we need the help of clubs and everyone that involves, let's say, like that has some power, let's say, in the chess world, to start listening to these stories, because whether they like or not, like we are going to join and do these kind of things, and it's going to be even worse for them, because then like instead of like helping from the beginning, we are going to be helping already when the damage is already done. So they better start helping us, I'm saying. So yeah. Just that.
Yes, I can also add, thank you, Ayelén, that you talked about my support, and it is very true that in my case, I was very fortunate, even though when I was a kid and a teenager, not necessarily I was happy that my parents were always with me and escorting me to tournaments. But actually, they were very conscious about it, that they knew how the world works. And they had these worries that me and my sisters, we are girls, so we can get different kind of challenges, and this might be one of them. And so this was something very important looking back, especially from this perspective. And later on, I was traveling with my husband, and I can say that I'm extremely fortunate that I didn't have these kind of not even similar experiences, which is, I'm very sadly listening. Of course, I'm following also Jennifer and other posts, and I'm very sorry to hear Lola and Anna, who is my great friend. Yeah, we never talked about this, but of course, I understand that it's awfully difficult to share, because generally, of course, for girls to say things, what happened to them, whatever negative things, it's usually it's not that they immediately give the attention and respect for your thoughts, but exactly, people are ignoring just the things. Okay, it's no big deal, right? So yeah, officials should be more serious about it, and also the society who are very near to them, I think, because everybody has responsibility to tell you the truth. I mean, whoever there is, whether they are powerful people or just simple people who have no position, I think we are all responsible. And actually, I would really like to see guys who are very supportive about not only about this specific topic, but also generally to support ladies to get into the chess world, to create the safety environment, to tell from a guy's perspective how important it is to have a safe environment for children, whether girls, boys, it doesn't really matter, but just to have a nice and safe environment for everybody, and to get more girls and ladies into the chess world and the community, because there's so many different things apart from the competition, right? Where women can add a lot to our game.
Yeah, and going off of that point, we do need to check on power dynamics. And Anna, what struck me about your story, and I was horrified to hear that, and I'm so sorry that happened to you, was that one of the perpetrators was your trainer. And, so he had some authority and a position of power over you. And Jen, I know you talked about this as well, policy surrounding having coaches in the same room as young players, and the ratio of having at least 3 people in the room just to avoid any instances of any misconduct occurring. But there are a lot of instances of power dynamics between coaches and students, trainers, captains, and, even grandmasters or famous personalities that hold some kind of status and abusing that status for their personal gain. And we definitely need to check on that. I really like the point that Ayelén made about accountability among these organizations, because even if there isn't a direct legal requirement that you can root into, that's not a shield for saying, oh, we don't have to do anything. So Jen, what struck me about your story was that it seemed like the organizations that you complained to were just passing the buck to each other, saying, oh, this is not our jurisdiction, talk to the other guys. And then they were saying the same thing and no one was getting anything done. Which is really bad for risk management, because there probably will be a legal issue down the line if it gets to this level. But also it's just bad in terms of accountability, and bad for corporate social responsibility. If you're in a position of power and you're making money from these events and you're supporting chess players and promoting a national team and players, then you do have a responsibility to step up and make sure your policies are enhanced and that all players are protected and feel safe to play.
Absolutely. And, I'm very grateful for everybody who spoke up and who supported me and other victims of abuse. But there is one thing I want to say that I want to make very clear, that the fault of abuse is the abuser and the perpetrator. And of course, I also am angry at enabling. It is not the responsibility of women or girls who've been traumatized to speak up about it. Like, I am proud of them and I am happy for them if they're able to release that in a way that's positive for them. But if a girl or a woman feels like it will be re-traumatizing and she's not even going to get anywhere with it, I don't blame her. That's not her fault. And then so I know there's some people who come to me since then and say, I feel guilt that I've carried this so long. I don't really want to speak up, but I just want to tell you. And I respect that. I know a lot of people are angry about that, but the anger must be at the abuser. It must be at the abuser, period.
I'm overwhelmed. I don't know if Lula, would you like to add anything to that about your experience, or shall we move on to a more lighthearted topic? Because I know that this is a heavy one to chew.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, upset to hear about the number of cases of abuse. And when I tweeted initially about the negative experience I'd had in Iceland, I think I really underestimated at the time how much attention that would get. And I was obviously very glad that I was able to then speak with the organizers, and I had other people send statements to the organizers as well in support of that. And it all opened up a good discussion and talking about safeguarding at the tournament, and they, asked me how can we improve safeguarding, and it was all very productive. But I think it is really important to, like Ayelén was saying, to protect victims, and it is something that you see a lot online if women are talking about any of these instances where people will either say, if they don't just outright accuse you of lying, they will say, oh, just move on, get stronger, and show them that you're better than them. And it's not that simple, and it's not that easy, and it's something that you carry around with you. So yeah, I'm really glad that we're having this discussion, but it's heavy.
Yeah, up to you, ladies. I think all of us shared some things, and I think right now we're in a position where a lot of things are happening, and I think we just sort of right now, maybe waiting is the wrong word, but just wait to see, does something happen from the top, as Ayelén was saying, you know, starting with FIDE, who is the governing body of chess, and is there a place, you know, where we can go to, and is something actually going to happen? Because I feel right now there are enough stories. Something needs to happen, and I agree with Jen. Like, some girls, some women might not want to speak out, and that is fine. But those who do want to do so need to have a safe space to do it, and they need to be heard, and something needs to be done.
I just, last thing about this, I just want to say that I would love to follow up later offline, or like, and with to do something like, and also like if FIDE hears this, or like any federation, like also like just to take action, because I've seen a lot of these kind of, I don't know, Congress talking about harassment, Congress about this, Congress about that, but like what exactly are the policies? And I'm saying to myself, because also like I say a lot of things, but like what can they do actually, like concrete, like what steps are the things that they going to do to the people that they know already that they did stuff, like what are, I mean, kind of punishment, like, or whatever you want to call it, but like what are the actions that are going to be taken into these things? Because it's nice to talk, and it's like, I mean, nice is super like heavy and like not nice at all, but you know, it's a good thing because you create like awareness and everything. But I want to see actions. I want to see like, I don't need anyone like from FIDE or from any federation telling me like, oh yes, I understand your situation. No, like tell me exactly what you are going to do. Like what are the concrete steps? And the support is great and I love it, but like, yeah, just to say that maybe it's necessary to follow up with concrete actions. But yeah, that's the last comment, and then we can move to a better topic. Yeah.
I think that was a great point, Ayelén, and we can also give that as a task to the team of Chess.com. We are part of a conversation here on Chess.com, and I'm sure that Chess.com, they have done a lot already, but they want to do more. That's why we are having this conversation. So it's great that we have the support of the largest chess platform, and they also have a lot of authority and a lot of exposure when it comes to the chess community, and I'm sure that they will use their voice. Danny, I'm not looking at you right now, but I'm sure that you will use your voice to make the situation even more welcoming for girls, women, and children in general. As we mentioned, it's not only a gender issue; it is an issue. Full stop.
Yeah. Yeah, I can tell you that like there are a lot of talks and ideas. And again, I'm happy actually to be behind the scenes, because sometimes I feel like even Danny or here actually the teams that they want to help, but they don't know how, let's say. And it's like, okay, like what we can do, like they don't have ideas. And like, that's actually something that we need to also step up and telling them like, okay, like we need like this space is a really good thing, like gathering more women, like, well, anyways, like actions, right? But it's good important to help them also to help us, because, for example, I know that Danny, Eric, they are super concerned and they are super like pro women in chess. But obviously, like I understand, like it's not so easy to know exactly what to do. But yeah.
Yeah, just last thing I'll say on this from a corporate perspective. I mean, one of the first things that we advise clients in this instance, because the Me Too movement has been going on for years, and so this is not new to the chess world. I know USA Gymnastics went through a similar issue as well, horrifying incidents, and they had to take drastic measures to change. But really, any type of company or corporation, do you have a sexual harassment policy in place? Is there a way in which people can make complaints in a confidential way? And will this be escalated to the right people? Do you have a dispute resolution mechanism? Is there a way in which you can investigate any potential complaints or disputes? How do these get resolved, in a way that is fair to the person who's complaining? And also, sometimes there may be false complaints, and balancing that. Just even having some type of mechanism in place. And the first step is, do you have a sexual harassment policy? And even just a simple step to get the conversation going and codifying something, so at least people can refer to it and people are trained, especially executives and people in power. I mean, those are just practical, very easy steps. And if you are a powerful chess organization or company in this space and you don't have one, now is the time to get one.
I think that's a great point, Alisa. So we have in fact started that to-do list for all organizations, as Ayelén suggested. It's very important. It is so true that it's first step is to talk about these topics, and then all right, but what are we doing actually? Like, what is it as a next step? What can we as people and what can organizations, entities do to help the situation for the near future? And hopefully this won't be an issue then at some point down the line. And to pick up on what Fiona mentioned about me being accused of cheating, I don't want this conversation to be about me, but I want to highlight the part that was me being accused because I was I think 20, how old I was? About 20 years old and a girl, so young woman. And what others said in my case is that if that same performance, so I'm winning game after game, I'm beating the #1 seeded player, but if that was performance by a young man or a talented boy, a lot of people said they don't think that that person or that boy or that man would have been accused. And I think what was eye-opening is that I raised suspicion of being a cheater because I played too good for being a girl or a woman. And how can we change the perspective on what play like a girl or play like a woman is, would be my open question to the group here.
Well, Jen, Play Like a Girl, isn't that the name of one of your books?
It was a small hint, Jen.
That is the name of one of my books. And of course, it has a lot of Judit Polgar games in it. And God, I got to get games from all of you guys, too. Lula, your queen sacrifice. Don't think I didn't snag that. But seriously, I mean, one of the points I also make in Chess Queens is that I feel like for my generation of player, because many of us were inspired so much by Judit and her sisters Susan and Sophia's games, they were not known for being passive. So, you know, growing up on those games, it really made me want to fight, play the open Sicilian. I had to throw out the C3 Sicilian and just go for it. So I always thought of playing like a girl as like an aggressive, positive thing in my upbringing. And of course, I understood that was not always perceived that way. When I was just starting, people said like playing like a girl is passive. And then when I got a little bit stronger, people said that playing like a girl meant that you couldn't play positionally, strategically. And unfortunately, I think Fiona has some experience with that point of view. So I want to toss it over to her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was, you know, I mentioned earlier, I never had personally very bad experiences until the FIDE Grand Prix came along last September in Kazakhstan, and I was working with Grandmaster Elias Mirin.
She is not Grandmaster?
No, she's actually not even international master. I believe
I mean, she's woman Grandmaster or what?
She's woman Grandmaster, yeah.
Why she wants to be like man Grandmaster in this case?
So to answer the question, it must be possible, yeah. I guess there are enough, what do they need? 3 Grandmaster opponents, right?
Well, it's possible basically to make a man norm in the women tournament.
Of course, why not?
I don't know.
I mean,
for instance, why not? Why women can play with men and men cannot play with women? It's also why not?
A question for another day.
It would be like, today everyone for parity.
Yeah. But you cannot. I mean, you're saying, chess is maybe not for women. Then you have to pick either.
I didn't say it openly. I didn't say it openly.
No?
Sorry, in private conversations.
I thought you said it on. I mean, okay, you said that Goryachkina is playing like a man. Yeah, it's also not.
Yeah, that's true. So Goryachkina, she played in Soviet Union, in Russia. Sorry, super final. Small minus she made, but it was very strong tournament.
Yeah, but that
and she also had like 2600 plus recently rating.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with playing like a man? Only men can play well?
No, but she's playing in style, like positional style, like a very strong end game. So it's. But okay, I always was curious why women can play among men, but men cannot play with women in women tournament. This is interesting question, yeah? Interesting question, yeah.
Someone else than me.
Yeah, I'm not asking basically. It's a rhetorical question, let's say.
And I never really shared, so much of what was happening behind the scenes, because I was just, in the end, I was glad that the incident came to light, and I was glad that FIDE acted swiftly. But the clip that most people saw, the clip that went viral, that was round 9, and 8 rounds had preceded that, 8 rounds that would last on average 4 to 5 hours. And you can imagine, with the things he said in that clip, that it wasn't a standalone incident, that this wasn't, a slip of the tongue or a slip of the mind. So I had been hearing a lot of comments about, women's chess and about, how these, and it was an incredibly uncomfortable situation for me, because from day one, at the end of round 1, I was kind of just thinking, who thought, I didn't really know Ilya beforehand. And just to be clear immediately, I'm not even angry at him, because I don't think that he meant, to attack anyone, or he meant to hurt anyone. I think it's just, I think it's like maybe part of his upbringing and part of the chess culture of where he started playing. And he's not the only one. I don't think he's a bad guy per se. In a way, I almost felt sorry for him, because first they said he will apologize, and I don't think he knows what he should apologize for, Like, I don't think he realizes that what he said is just not okay, So just to get that out of the way. So from day one, I thought, how am I in this position? How am I commentating on a women's event alongside someone who clearly thinks nothing or very little of women's chess and of how a majority of women play chess? And I, after a day or two, thought, should I talk to someone from FIDE? Should I complain? And the truth is, I said nothing, because I thought, okay, like, is nobody watching this broadcast, Like, if FIDE hire him, and do they have nobody watching the show, or do they have people watching and they think this is okay? And the truth is, maybe I should have spoken up sooner, but I thought what's likely going to happen if I say something is it will filter back to him, and it will just be an incredibly uncomfortable position for me for the next 10 days, and nothing will really happen, except my job will be even harder, because, the atmosphere will be really bad. And so, yeah, it was just, I think day by day, I just got quieter and quieter. He was also someone who was talking a lot. So I just, although I have quite a lot of experience as a commentator, I just day by day started saying less and less. And I just let him talk and just sort of, looked at the watch and was like, okay, a couple more hours and it will be done. And it's sad, I laugh now, because it kind of feels unreal that this even that this even happened. But I was so glad when, you know, after round 9, it was kind of surreal when it all blew up, because I had never, you know, had anything go viral, or I had never been a part of a scandal like this before. And I remember when the tweet originally appeared, it was by someone, a US woman player, I can't remember who now, but she tweeted it originally, and I think Tatev bounced back on it, and the next thing I knew, it was everywhere and everyone was talking about it. And I think only after it went viral that night did I really realize, you know, how bad. I think, you know, throughout the week I had gotten used to just, okay, like this is happening every day and nobody is saying anything. I mean, you know, someone hired him. This is a FIDE event. I understand the viewer numbers are not that big, but we also have a production team who's listening in on every word. So it was just like, I think every day I was just in disbelief, like how is this acceptable? I think in general it's not acceptable, some of the remarks, but especially at a women's tournament, you know, you're literally paid to commentate on these games and you think it's okay to make these demeaning remarks. So I think it was, oh yeah, that's the one, thank you, Jen. Let me not butcher her name, but
yeah.
Yeah, so she was the one, and I'm so thankful, because I think, you know, it was a tweet, like she is not someone who has a huge following, and it was picked up, and I, you know, like there were 2 more days until the tournament ended, and if it hadn't been for that clip going viral, nobody would know, you know, at this point. Like I would probably have told a few friends, oh, the experience was really unpleasant, but I don't think anyone right now would know about the things he said, about how it was. And I think it's not a standalone incident, you know, it makes me think how many other incidents like this one went unnoticed, you know. So I'm really glad that this one was picked up and that it was so widely reported, and I am hopeful going forward that it will not happen again. But most of all, it made me realize, like, I think this is really about educating people, especially children. Like, I don't want young boys, you know, growing up in a world where they get influenced. Let's say they come to the chess club. I don't want other people telling them, oh, you're playing a girl, you know, this should be easy, or oh, I can't believe you lost to a girl. So I really think that it all begins with education and with speaking out. And I mean, I'm the first one. I was there in the flesh. I should have spoken out myself, but you know, as we mentioned, it's not always that easy. But so I would really encourage anyone who is going to be watching, you know, this roundtable, if you see things that you think are not okay, if you witness anything, just, I know it's not always easy, and I'll make a note of this for myself to speak out more. But I think the first step is really speak out. And, you know, maybe if you know, if this is a friend of yours, you know, often these remarks are made in jest, like, you know, don't be afraid to tell them, look, this is not okay. So anyway, I've been rambling for a long time. But yeah, I do believe that the fact that this happened, that he was sacked, and that people talked about it, and I'd like to think that I'm hopeful that we are moving in the right direction with these things coming to light and being addressed.
I would like to add something to your story, Fiona, that unfortunately, it was, of course, all my life I was hearing stories and just people, grandmaster talking, okay, women chess, which was somehow the synonym of not attacking chess. I didn't hear this one, Jennifer, but for bad chess, which is much more irritating, actually, that, oh, it's women chess, it's weak play of chess. Or actually, I got compliments quite a few times that she plays like a boy, right? That I got quite frequently at some point. And especially that I was part of the Olympic team, being with all guys around me. And there were occasions that the captain was telling this, that, come on, guys, she's the only guys. She's the only guy who really plays and fights and ready to fight, right? And these stereotypes and these very bad classical habits to say things like this, it is something very harmful. And but also I think and I believe that we women chess players, and they can also improve on the communication sometimes, because sometimes I hear also by themselves saying similar things because it's just a slang kind of thing, right? So we have to really watch it, how we phrase a sentence when we want to uplift someone's knowledge or we want to claim that it's a bad move. So don't use these kind of synonyms. And also the remarks that I got even from the highest women chess players when I met them, it is very frequent that they say, well, okay, Judith is the number one, she's by far away, we could never be like her. So actually women themselves also put a limitation for themselves. And this is also not good, I believe. So I think top women player could also encourage more girls that you don't have to say that be the very best of the best, but I think my way of inspiring girls, be the best you can. And that's it. I don't care whether it's a boy or a girl who you want to be better. No, get the best you can. And then later on, when you play for many years and you really did the best you can, then look around, and if you want, you can talk about it. But for a long time, it doesn't make any sense to compare.
Yeah. I wanted to say two things. One, follow up with Fiona, and that it's linked with something that Jennifer said before, like, it's okay that you didn't speak up about it. Like, I guess, like, it's like double pressure that we have. Like, we suffer this kind of situation, and also we have this pressure that, okay, we have to tell, or we don't have to, and what to do. And it's really awful. And actually, it's like double thing. And like, we are the victims, and we have to be victims again to say the thing. And in that situation, again, I point the federation, and not even the company. And I know that this is a bit partial because I work for the company, but also because, like, we need a like official entity, even like monitoring the company. Like, FIDE should also say, okay, if there's a business about chess, like Chess.com, Chessable, Chess24, like also they should actually regulate a bit inside there, let's say, like that touch a bit the chess world, because they're supposed to be the official part. And also with Fiona, with your situation, actually, it's like even more incredible that they didn't do anything. They shouldn't be like telling you that, oh, I'm expecting you. Nobody should expect that you should be the one saying that. They should be the one saying, like, first, like, never hire someone like that. But if they did a mistake, so say, like, we did a mistake, we didn't know about this, we apologize, and we are very sorry, Fiona, about that, and then, like, just change and make the statement. Not to wait until that. And actually, remember that after the tweet, they say that he will apologize live and then he will continue. And luckily, like, there was a lot of pressure, and then that didn't happen. But what is that kind of a statement, let's say? What is like, like he will just say, yeah, I'm sorry about that, and then nothing really happened here. Like, shouldn't be like that. And the other thing I wanted to have an opinion there, like, actually just to mention, in Chessable, we have two girls, Mathilde from France, that actually she's a woman grandmaster, and also, there's a department of science in Chessable, and they've been doing a lot of research about the gender gap and everything. And now they are implementing Mathilde and Sofia, like the inclusive language. That is something that you, Anna, were saying, like, how we can change the perspective about women in chess levels and everything. And it's something that I never seen before, and it's super revolutionary. And I'm actually super grateful with the girls there, with the work that they are doing, because in some books you read that they say, like, a chess master put his rooks always in an open file, for instance. His rooks. Because it's not her rook. Like, it was always that the chess master or a genius is going to be he. So it's always like the good players, always he. So it's necessary to change from the very bottom that part. And with this project that they are going to implement in Chessable, in all the courses in Chessable, is like trying to have in the guidelines to put this inclusive language and start using they. So then like it's like, okay, like a chess master, someone who plays really good, could be men, could be a male player, but also could be a female player. Doesn't really have to, the good level doesn't have to feel like in your brain that it's like only male players. So I think those small details in language, for instance, as Judith was also mentioning, when you are saying that, okay, yeah, you're like, you're super strong, you're playing like a boy there, that kind of things we have to actually be really conscious, even to myself, because I'm making jokes with my chess friends as well, like something like that, like, oh, you are playing like a girl now, like who is the woman here? And I am doing those jokes that I have to stop myself even, like, so I put like also on me the blame on this and in everyone, and we have to stop doing that because we create this, I don't know, like general thinking, like subconscious that we are like weaker than them. And it's not at all like that. So yeah, I don't know. Shout out to Matilde and Sofia in Chessable and Alexi and all the girls there like doing those research and also like being super brave because asking for inclusive language in chess and it's huge. And also shout out to the Chessable team because even like the male staff, they reacted super good and they say like, if we have to actually give up some people like super upset about it, doesn't really matter because actually we have to change the whole thing from the very bottom. So yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to mention that initiative that I feel like it's super good.
I think just to bounce back on what Ayelén is saying, I'm super happy to hear this. And you know, what you said about sometimes you have to stop yourself making certain jokes. And I mean, what you mentioned about the language, I am definitely guilty of that. I notice it when I stream, especially. You know, if I play against an unknown opponent, my default is always to refer to them as he, and it's something that I'm trying to become more conscious of. And I think, you know, Ayelén mentioned that they, you know, because they are stronger, and I think that's one part. But it's not only. I think it's also because we are such a minority. Like I always catch myself making this mistake of just assuming, you know, the other person's gender because it is so rare that they, you know, it's quite rare because there are so few girls. But I also often think, you know, if I make that assumption of I'm playing someone male, then you know what. So I think really, as Ayelén mentioned, I think it's something that we have to start from the bottom on up, and it's something that I am guilty of. I just want to give a big shout out to my friend Maripant, who I met through my streams, and she streams herself, and she was one of the people who really made me realize about this. And you know, we had these conversations, and now I really try to make a conscious effort, not just to make the effort, but to ingrain, you know, to train myself to not assume someone I'm dealing with is a man or a boy just because I'm in the chess world. So yeah, really happy to hear about this Chessable initiative. And I think, you know, a lot of people might think, oh, language is such a small part of the problem, but you know, it's all a part of it. And I'm really happy that things are moving in a good direction there as well.
Yeah, that's a fantastic initiative. And I'm guilty of misusing the pronouns myself, even in my own book, which is about the mindset of a competitive chess player. The very first draft, I ended up using he pronouns when talking about, you know, the player that would optimize decision making. It was always he. And it wasn't until I gave the copy of the draft to a colleague of mine who read it and said, why don't you change it to she pronouns? And the book came out in 2017. And at the time, it seemed very strange. But I did change it to she throughout, and you know, I'm very happy with the product. But even like you said, Fiona, I mean, my first instinct was to just go with what the norm is, and he. And so language is so important. Linguistics is such a part of our culture. It really does start there. And we should also take a look at, you know, who is speaking on behalf of chess, because you know, a lot of the issues you mentioned with your co-commentator, you know, he is being promoted as this figurehead for chess in that sphere. And, these organizations and companies that hire commentators, I don't know if they issue guidelines or trainings about what should be said about backgrounds on the players, but that's another really practical, good step to start. A lot of the themes, that I'm picking up here is that we lack proactivity, which as a chess community, I wish we could be better at, because our game does prioritize planning ahead and being proactive and addressing issues before they occur. Very, very similar to legal thinking, but I would think that chess organizations, now that we're aware of these issues and we know that they're happening, that we don't wait for another crisis to come, that we don't have these conversations only after the Wall Street Journal breaks this scandal in the chess world. We need to address this before the next headline.
That is a great point, Alisa, the proactivity. And that was going to be my follow-up question to all the ladies here, since we have already tackled quite a few aspects and quite a few hurdles and obstacles. I wanted to ask an open-ended question on what are some of the things we can do, we as people. We have mentioned already quite a few, but I would like to just brainstorm a few ideas, whether it's something that us as a chess player or entities can do, or chess clubs can do, or organizers can do. Just any thoughts, any ideas that the chess community as a whole could work on for a more equal future for the chess community.
Well, go ahead, Judit.
I would say that there are a lot of things to be done, apart from the regular things that you make camps and you make organize events and so on. I think it's also very important to put emphasis on the parents' attitude, and also especially on the coaches. Because I like to bring up this metaphor that right now I experience that if you see a 7-year-old talented boy and you see a 7-year-old talented girl, and you have a good coach, very good coach, they want to motivate their students, they're going to be saying to the girl that, wow, you're so good. You can really become a women's world champion. And if there is a boy of talented, wow, you're so good, you can become Magnus Carlsen. And actually, in reality, if you translate it into the life, it is like you would motivate the girl that, wow, you're so smart, you're going to get a PhD, whatever you're going to be doing. And you encourage the boy that, wow, you're so good, you're going to get Nobel Prize eventually one day. And I mean, let's face it, there's a huge gap between the two, right? But even coaches, they don't realize how much they limit instantly a little girl. And I think many parents do the same. So I think there is a lot to be done, and to put awareness towards parents and coaches from very different sides, that they are not thinking about it. They just go with the flow, how it just happens, right? But I think many of the parents and coaches would understand that even small things, if we talk about the language, what we talked before, right? It is something people would neglect and they say it doesn't matter. But there are small thing here, small thing there. It can really bring something really huge change. But I think you cannot leave out the adults who are around the children.
I was going to talk about being a chess parent as well. I'm a mom of a 6-year-old boy who loves chess. He's playing in tournaments for like the last half a year, and it's just such a joy. And the one thing that's really important to me, like for all children, is to inspire them with like great women players. So my son, when he got the Play Magnus app, he wanted to play Judit because Judit was stronger at 5 than Magnus was, right? And he also liked to play Yvette Garcia Morales on Chess Kid. And I think that is something I'd like to see more widespread, that when we inspire with the great games of women, like Luciana just came out with a course on Chessable about the queens of the chessboard. This is not a course for women. This is a course for chess players, because the great games of women have been neglected for far too long. So that's one thing. I think boys need female coaches and role models, not just girls. Unfortunately, there's such a limited number of female coaches and role models that, like, logistically, it can be difficult to get enough. But we got to try. And the other thing that I'd say has been really successful with my work, and I'd like to see other federations try it, is that when we have a mixed tournament where girls are going to be extremely outnumbered, like our national scholastic events where we're only going to have 20% girls, they're still all in the same section, but we have some special events for girls like in between the rounds to get to know each other. So it's called like the Girls Club Room. So the idea there is we still want girls to play amongst all genders, and yet it's so important for them to make friends with other girls so that they can like travel and bond with each other. So I think that's a really nice solution that more people should try. And as for harassment, I really believe prevention is so huge, because I've seen the nightmare of trying to report, the nightmare of women who feel too guilty about their assault, and they shouldn't feel any guilt, but they feel like, oh, well, how do I report it? When do I report it? I've seen all of that aftermath, and honestly, it's just all so terrible. And so the more we can just avoid that altogether, because we nip things in the bud, we avoid these situations, we background check and vet coaches more, the better.
Yeah, I can answer this question from chess perspective and maybe from the legal perspective. So from the chess perspective, I would love to see more support for top female players and getting them ready for tournaments and competitions, you know, having specific training camps or sessions before big events, before we go out on the world stage. This might be a problem specific to the American chess scene, but it's not as supported as it is for other federations. So what happens is, you know, you have these girls who are motivated to qualify for the teams, and then when they do, they get onto the world stage and they're just not as prepared, and that could be demotivating. And so we really do need to rally around, you know, the players that have devoted a lot of time to chess, and that'll keep retention up too, because you see, you know, a lot of girls drop out because they reach a certain level and then they just aren't getting the support. So I think that could have a trickle down effect. And then from the legal perspective, in terms of the proactive steps that I mentioned already, just to summarize, if you don't already have a sexual harassment policy, dispute resolution, and investigation mechanism in place, now is the time, you know, speak to your legal team, get that rolled out, and make sure everyone in your company who's in a senior position or who is a figurehead for the company, who has a public speaking role, even if they aren't a formal employee, make sure they're also trained and they follow, you know, the guidelines that you have.
On my end, I think some of the points that have been raised are great. I'm not so active in the sphere of, you know, active chess playing anymore or working with kids, but I really like what Jen was saying, you know, about these girls' clubs, and it's something that I never knew growing up, because there were just no girls, unfortunately, playing in Luxembourg, but it's something I would have enjoyed a lot. I agree, you know, with what Elisa is saying. I think right now, with some of the core of our discussion today, the very real problems of harassment, of all that, I think this is where something needs to happen right now. We need to get some policies. We need to know when we see something, when something happens, what exactly do we do? Who can we turn to? Who is going to act, you know? Then on what I'm more active in, so which is commentary on working on events, you know, Elisa, you asked earlier, are there any guidelines? No, there is none of that. I don't think any event I ever worked on as a commentator had any guidelines or anything like that, because, well, I don't know because of what, but I think maybe it should, you know, maybe there should be more guidance, especially for people who are starting out, but not only, you know, what Ayelén mentioned earlier, inclusive language. I think there's so many things that can happen right now, and that should happen. And you know, what Judit mentioned starts with the coaches. I really think that so much of solving some of these problems is just to do with education, educating the parents, educating the coaches, and the kids, not so much educating them, but giving them the right message when they start out. I think all of those are really, really important. But I have to say, a lot of the discussion we've had today, there were some really heartbreaking moments and some things that are tough to talk about. But I would like, to think that it's so important that we are having these discussions now. As Ayelén mentioned, it's not enough to just talk about it, but I am hopeful that things are happening and that people are starting to listen and to act. And so I really hope that this is only the beginning.
Yeah. I will say that I join also with about having more, trying to support like more like girls camps or tournaments, and even like trying to have more coaches, like female coaches, like even if they don't have the same experience that maybe other male coaches, we need them also as a role and also to be closer to them, because it's true that we all grew up like looking at Judith, and actually that was a huge inspiration for many things. But also, like, we need people like close to us, close to the girls, like they're like that they are kind of, I don't know, guiding them in the daily chess life, let's say, in tournaments, in everything. So we are not so many. So yeah, trying to open those spaces for women in coach roles, and also inside every entity that rules chess, let's say, like even with the companies like Chess.com, Chess24 and FIDE and all the entities, let's say, like I think like they need to have more women inside the company, inside the federations to make decisions. And the second thing about harassment and those really hard topics, I feel like it's time to take action. And it's not possible that we all know that this guy did something and nobody's doing anything. And it's like and I think like you all in the call know like a big name that did a lot of things and nobody did anything, and like and that kind of things cannot happen anymore. Like someone has to say, okay, like this is going to be the example for everyone, that if you do this, like then like this is going to be the consequence. You cannot be harassing girls and then like nobody happens to you and then you have a big role and everything. Like no, shouldn't be like that. We should put like the example that if you do this, then like you cannot play any more chess, or you will have to be a part of any position or powerful role. Like, and I really hope to see that in the future, because in chess I feel like sometimes, yeah, we all know and it's a hidden thing there and like nothing really happens. So then like what's the example for everyone else? If you do something and then you don't have any consequence, like what's the example that we are giving? So yeah, I really hope to see that change in the future. And thank you so much actually to all of you. Like it's really good to share these things and like share this space. And so yeah, it's super powerful, I feel like, if we join all together. So yeah.
Lula, could I have your perspective on that? I think you were too shy to jump in, but I know you want to say something.
Of course. I completely agree with what Ayelén is saying about cases such as Jen's being really important to set a precedent for taking real action. And I'm so grateful for Jen for speaking out specifically, because I think we all have platforms in this call to some degree. And I think it is really, really important that we use them. And I think that's another reason why this conversation is so important. And for me, as somebody who got into chess much later, and I haven't been part of, girls clubs or anything like this, and I've only started playing over the board recently, I think that so much of my chess life is online and a lot of chess is online now. I think I really can't overstate the importance of representation and of female chess streamers and female chessable authors and, all of the great women that we see, producing content or working towards making girls' chess more accessible. And so I think it's really important to connect like this and also to encourage. I mean, in the 2 years I've been doing chess content creation, it's really like as a space blown up, and there's so many more women in it now than there even were just then. And I know that so many of you have been doing it for so much longer than I have. And when I entered chess and I started interacting with chess players online, a lot of these women were really strong players. And so I never had this like play like a girl is a negative, like when I entered chess, I was like, wow, all of these women are very cool and very powerful. And I want to be just like them. And so I think being here and taking up space is very important, and demanding that that space is owed to girls now who are learning chess and wanting to be the best they can be. I think it's all super important, and I'm really, really grateful that we were able to have this conversation.
Thank you so much for sharing, Lula, and thanks so much to each and every one of you. I think we have mentioned, especially you ladies, I was here just passing on the microphone, but there have been so many incredibly important ideas mentioned, strategies, next steps. I feel like I'm going to throw the ball now over to Chess.com again to compile a list, an article perhaps, about everything that has been mentioned, what a parent can do, what a coach can do, what an organization can do, what a chess club can do, what an event can do, because this is the start. This is only the start, I believe, of a very, very important conversation that will hopefully help on the long run, but preferably near future, that things will be a more welcoming, more fair, more inclusive space for everybody, for every single person, every child, and anyone of any gender in the chess community. So thanks so much for opening the conversation. And let's continue this discussion offline as well, in the comments for our viewers, in the comments of a potential forum, maybe a forum post, an article. I'm not sure where this goes, so I'm talking very vague here. But I know that Chess.com will make sure that this conversation is the beginning, and this will go to help for further progress in the overall chess world. So thank you so much to each and every one of you. And feel free to add any more thoughts, obviously. I don't mean to shut down the conversation if you want to include anything else.
No, I just want to say a big thank you to you, and as always, you've been wonderful leading this conversation. And just to echo what I think we've all said, it's been great being a part of this. And yeah, there were some difficult topics, but I feel some really important topics were addressed. And as I was just saying, hopefully this is just the beginning, and there is a long way to go, but I feel we've also come some way already. And yeah, just a big thank you to all of you. It's been really, really powerful to share this space and to hear all the stories. And yeah, look forward to see where we go from here.
It's been amazing.
Yes, thank you so much.
I just wanted to say thank you so much. The only thing that could have made this better is if we were all in the same room, so we could share.
Exactly.
Share hugs, of course. When you made your share earlier, I really wished long that I could be in the same room as you and give you a big hug, Anna. And I'm so happy that you hosted this brilliantly. And thanks to the Chess.com team for making it happen. And I echo your thoughts about the comments. And I think that's a challenge to everybody listening to this, because sometimes we get comments from people who are not so nice, and then we get some comments from super fans. But I would like people who've been influenced positively in any way to take that challenge to add your voice to the conversation, so that we know that you're there and that you are impacted in some way from this.
And just to echo that, thank you so much to Anna and the Chess.com team for putting this wonderful panel together. I'm really honored to be here amongst all of you distinguished ladies. Many of you are icons and legends who I've looked up to in my own chess career. And I'm so glad we had this opportunity and this safe space. We covered a lot of tough topics, but I wanted to end on a positive note, because it's not all negative. We're all here because we love chess and because this is a community worth fighting for. Chess has afforded me a lot of skills that I've used in my career, have formed lifelong friendships and relationships from the game. And it's a community that I will always be a part of, and I would love to support. And so I just wanted to leave it on that positive and optimistic note, because I do feel optimistic about what's to come for chess.
Well, I can also say a few words, and happy to do so, that I was very happy to be here, and that you all shared your sensitive or not so sensitive and positive, uplifting ideas forward, because that's a very important thing, I believe. And I always believe that the right people, the good, positive mindset people who are out there, probably all of you are here in their own way. You are great role models for many. And I think it's great when people see those kind of people who have their positivity about the game, about their community, and also take responsibility about them. And I can also would like to share that when I organize my events, the Global Chess Festival, it's for everybody. We don't make separate girls or boys events. No, it is something to have a fun environment for all the girls and boys and everybody. And actually this year is going to be the theme decision making. So I want to roll the dice and say it's for decision making. There are a lot of things to make decisions on, I guess. So anyway, I want to wish you all good luck in the future also with your things.
Thank you, Judith.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks to each and every one of you. Again, I would like a big round of applause to all the participants here because you did amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and stories. I'm clapping through what I'm talking. That was totally not professional, but I'm emotional and I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much again for sharing this space with all of us in the chess community. And as we said, this is just the beginning of a very promising, constructive space that can be even more inclusive and welcoming to everybody.